everybody, and welcome back to the Hangout Spot where you already know it's Real Talk Sports Talk. Live from my man cave, it's your boy Johnny. And let's talk Jets, because yesterday I did a rant video immediately after that disgusting and uninspiring loss by the Jets yesterday, losing to the Broncos 10-9, because I just needed to vent, man. I mean, it was terrible. It was horrible. And that vent made me feel a little bit better. But now here we are 24 hours later, or more than 24 hours later, and the loss has gotten a chance to sink in. And trust me when I tell you, I feel just as disgusted today as I felt yesterday. And to make matters worse, I go ahead and I do it to myself, and I go and I watch Robert Saleh's post-game press conference after the game, and then today, his press conference with the media the next day after the loss. And I got to tell you, man, just what I said yesterday in my video, man. I mean, if there's anything that's going to hold this team back, it's the head coach, man. He is absolutely horrible. He's terrible. Robert Saleh is probably the nicest guy in the world, but he's definitely one of the worst coaches we've had here in quite a long time. I know he gets a lot of compliments for being a good defensive mind, and I take nothing away from him on the defensive side of the football. He did his thing at the 49ers, but as a head coach, man, he's just not that guy that's going to be able to take this team to the next level. I said that coming into the season. I felt like that was going to be our downfall. And again, today, after yesterday's debacle, I feel the exact same way. And trust me, I've had people that have commented on my video saying, hey, listen, you can't just fall off a cliff after one loss. Things will get better. But what people don't understand is that it's not about that one loss. We've been seeing the same nonsense from this team for the past 3 years. Yesterday was no different than some of the garbage that we saw last year. It was no different. We couldn't move the chains, 4 of 17 from third downs. We were undisciplined, 15 penalties, 2 that weren't accepted. So 13 official penalties for almost 100 yards, 5 pre-snap penalties, because the damn line can't stay disciplined enough when Rodgers does his hard count. This is something that Rodgers has utilized as a weapon his entire career, the hard count. How many times have we seen it while he was at Denver, while here, the first week of the season, when we utilized the hard count to get a free play and throw the ball downfield for a touchdown to Allen Lazard? He's done that his entire career. It's a weapon in his arsenal that he has mastered. And because of that, you cannot take that away from him. Like basically Saleh alluded to in the post-game press conference yesterday, how maybe they have to scale things back. Bullshit. What Rodgers said in his post-game press conference was absolutely right. That's one way to look at it, but what about holding your players accountable? Because that's what a head coach is supposed to do. I got people commenting on my videos saying that, well, you know, the players make mistakes. You know, that happens. Listen, at the end of the day, you're right. Players are going to make mistakes. But when it happens once, it's a mistake. When it continuously happens week after week, year after year, that's not a mistake. Those are bad habits that need to be coached. Players need to be held accountable. Period. Pull them for a play or two. I'm not telling you to pull a player for the entire game. Hey, if it's feasible and you can make it happen, then make it happen. But pull them for at least 2 or 3 plays so they can realize that the game is bigger than themselves. Okay? You go out there and you make boneheaded plays that you should be practicing every day in practice, every single week before the game. What I don't understand is how this team is so undisciplined with the cadence and the hard count when they are practicing that seamlessly during the week. Or at least they should be. I don't know what the hell they're doing in practice. The whole thing with guys running the wrong routes, Garrett Wilson, Xavier Gibson yesterday. What is going on in practice? You had an entire offseason, OTAs, training camp, joint practices, and yet 4 games into the season, 4 full games into the season, there is still miscommunication going on with the quarterback and his main receiver. That's coaching. What are we doing to address that? What are we doing to address that? and the penalties. I mean, what is Saleh doing to address that? Because if you're telling me as a fan that you realistically think that he's holding players accountable, it's just that we can't see it. He's doing it behind closed doors. Then whatever he's doing ain't working. Something else needs to happen. If he's making these guys run laps, let's say hypothetically, that's not working. You have to cut into their playing time. That's what matters to these guys. They are prideful people. They need to fix it. They need to get it right. And if Saleh isn't going to do it, then nobody's going to do it because this coaching staff in totality is piss poor. The offensive coordinator is terrible. We saw it last year, and we all hoped as Jet fans that Aaron Rodgers was going to come in at 40 years old and mask all these deficiencies. But let me tell you something. At the end of the day, he's also not a miracle worker. He is a human being. He is 40 years old. He is doing his part. The coaching staff has to do their part. They got to call the proper plays for the proper personnel. You got to know your personnel. Yesterday was a strong indication that Hackett has no clue on how to play certain people from his personnel group. On a first and goal from the 1 yard line, you don't run your 235-pound rookie running back, Braylon Allen, who had proven yesterday that he was the only one that was going to be able to muster any type of positive yards downfield. The only guy, because Breece Hall did not have it yesterday. And that's another story we'll get into in a second. But at the end of the day, first and goal, you don't run Braylon Allen twice. You run Breece Hall there because you're trying to force feed him the football because he's supposedly your workhorse or your guy or the guy that you consider one of your superstars. So you feel like you owe him, these goal line snaps? No, you don't owe anybody anything. You owe it to the fans, to your players, to put the best possible personnel out there that will give you the best possible chance to score. And then on third down, you put them in, and then you fake it, play action, and it goes nowhere. Terrible play calling. Go routes that should be going to Mike Williams or going to a guy who's 5'6", 5'7", whatever Gibson's size is. Wrong personnel, wrong play call, wrong person to run that type of route. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? Good coaches, what separates the good from the great is that they have a good feeling of the game. That particular game. You coach every game on a game-to-game basis. Now, you have a game plan coming in. All right. You have to have a game plan coming in, but you also have to have a plan B and a plan C because you're going to have to make adjustments based on what the other coach is doing and what the other defense is throwing at you, or vice versa. This is chess. It's not checkers. These guys are playing checkers, Connect Four, while the other teams are playing chess. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because if you look at the Jets on paper, they got a team on paper that can beat anybody. They can compete against anybody in this league if they had the right coaching staff to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and make this car move the way it's supposed to move. You give this roster to any credible coach, Dan Campbell, Sean Payton, Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, any credible coach, and I guarantee you their potential will be maximized. Why? Because they know how to push the right buttons. It's not going to be perfect every week. I'm not expecting perfection, but it has to be a cycle of getting better and better and progressing. With the Jets every week, every year, it looks like they're getting worse and worse. That is a byproduct of poor coaching. This coaching staff got an opportunity to come back for one reason and one reason only, because Aaron Rodgers. All right. I am a firm believer that as soon as he went down last year and it was announced that he was out for the season, they got a free pass because they operated that way. There was no sense of urgency. There was no urgency by the GM to go out there and get another quarterback to possibly upgrade the position, knowing that Zach Wilson totally wasn't ready, especially when you feed us that garbage about him wanting to be redshirted last year. If you really wanted to redshirt him, then you would have brought another quarterback in there and you would have had him start, a veteran guy that can at least hold the fort together. But no, you allowed that to fall apart. Why? Because I'm a firm believer that they got a free pass. Just play the season out, regardless of what happens. We'll do what we need to do and retool in the draft and the offseason, and you guys will get your fair shot with Aaron Rodgers, which I thought was totally the wrong decision by an owner who has no clue. And this is the reason why the Jets are going through what they're going through here, because that stuff starts up top. That bullshit starts up top with poor ownership. And it bleeds on down because a poor owner hires a poor GM who hires a poor coach who hires a piss poor coaching staff. And this is the product you get with the type of team that we have on paper. There were plenty of people in the offseason that were picking us to possibly be a contender for a Super Bowl. Definitely a playoff contender, a team that could possibly match up well with the Bills, with the Ravens, with the Chiefs. And now look at us. We're now at risk of possibly losing the next 2 to 3 games, going 2-4, 2-5 with this type of roster. And then you tell me what Jet fans are going to say after that when we're 2-5 sitting here. If you think that I'm calling for Robert Saleh's head too early, wait till another 2 or 3 weeks when this thing continues to spiral downhill. And trust me when I tell you, I hope I'm wrong. I want the Jets to go out there. I want them to fly to London on Thursday. I want them to treat this as a business trip and go out there and give the Vikings the business, give Sam Darnold the business. But right now, the Vikings look like the best team in football. Sam Darnold, if the season ended today, would probably be offensive MVP. He's playing out of his mind. Out of his mind. I don't know why or how. I always saw potential in Sam. I feel like we did the best that we possibly could do to ruin him because that's what we do to quarterbacks. I always knew if you put him in the right situation with the right personnel, the right coach, that he can be a starting quarterback in this league, and he's proven that. I'm happy for him. I don't want him to do well Sunday, but I guarantee you he will. He will because the football gods will make sure that he does. We're traveling across the pond to play probably the hottest team, if not the best team right now in the NFL. It's not a good mix because our problems aren't going to fix themselves in 1 week. They're not. We can't run the ball effectively at all unless we run the ball with Braylon Allen. And it seems like I said, that he's not going to be an option because they want to force feed the superstar in Breece Hall. We can't continue to kill ourselves with stupid penalties, but it doesn't seem like that's going to go anywhere anytime soon because this has been a problem under Salah since he's been the coach of this team. Hard counts is going to be a problem. I mean, I just don't know what else to say, except if you're a Jet fan, you can't sit there and honestly tell me that you are confident in this coaching staff's ability to beat any credible team when it matters the most. We can't even prepare for a team with a rookie quarterback with 9 days to prepare. We can't even prepare appropriately to look like we're ready to play a game. We can't even do that against this type of team, the Broncos. No disrespect, because the Broncos have themselves a very, very good defense, and I like Sean Payton as head coach. But with a rookie quarterback, there's no business. We had no business losing that game yesterday. No business at all. At home, with 9-10 days to prepare, that's bullshit. We look better on a short week against the Patriots. But again, don't get it twisted. Everybody thought that the Jets had turned the corner. I was happy with that performance. It was probably the most dominant performance that I've seen the Jets have in 2 or 3 years in all phases. But I also took into consideration who the opponent was. We were supposed to do that just the way we were supposed to beat the Broncos. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jet fans will come back at me and say, well, you know what? We're the Jets. We shouldn't be favored to have to beat anybody in this league because we haven't proven anything yet. And you're right. We haven't. But I'm just talking about on paper. We have a Hall of Fame quarterback. We have weapons on offense. And yet, we can't even score 10 points, 10 points against a team that's traveling across the country, in our home stadium. I mean, it's just terrible. And like I said, you hear this guy, Robert Saleh, in the post game and in the press conferences, and he has no clue. He has absolutely no clue on how to fix it because he's saying the same damn things that he's been saying year after year. We got to clean this up. We got to clean that up. Making excuses after excuse after excuse. Why not just say, you know what? I'm bad. I need to get better. I mean, nothing. There's nothing, and that's what tells me that there's no accountability in that locker room. And I saw something today. I saw Boomer Esiason said something on his talk show earlier today that I actually saw a clip of on Twitter, where he feels like, based on the body language, things that he's seeing on the sideline, that he feels that Aaron Rodgers doesn't like Robert Saleh because he said there's no communication. The body language tells him all that he needs to tell him. And I don't even think he brought up that thing, with the 2 scores where where Salah tried to hug him and he pushed Salah back. I didn't really take too much stock in that. I just thought that was more of a competitive thing. Well, guess what? You wanted a 2-score? Don't hug me. We got a 2-score lead. So I thought it was more of a friendly thing. But maybe there's some substance to what Boomer says. He said that in his career, he used to have that same exact body language with 2 different coaches that he didn't like. Why? Because he didn't trust them. And because of that, he had a bad relationship. And he said that you can tell by his body language. And he says that, again, although, he's not 100% sure, obviously, but from what he can see, he feels like Rodgers doesn't like Salah. And you know what? Maybe there's some substance to that. I kind of believe that because at the end of the day, Rodgers is 40 years old. He's not here to play games. He's only got a couple years left, if that much. And when you start seeing the same nonsense and the same, lack of accountability and nobody being held accountable and making the same damn mistakes, because you can see Rodgers was frustrated on the field with the false starts, with the jumping off sides. He was frustrated by it. But what he needs to do is he needs to get in players' faces as well, like Tom Brady used to do. He's earned that right to be able to do that. Because Saleh ain't doing it. So if he doesn't like Salah, I don't blame him. I don't like Saleh either. I don't like anybody in this coaching staff. I think Nathaniel Hackett is one of the worst coordinators we ever had. It's a bland offense. There's nothing spectacular out of it. There's no creativity whatsoever. And this is an offense that's not being quarterbacked by Zach Wilson anymore. This is an offense that's being quarterbacked by a Hall of Fame quarterback. Mind you, right? Still no creativity. Still can't utilize Breece Hall the way he needs to be utilized. Maybe he's just a third down back at this point until he starts getting things going, because you could tell teams are keying into him and Garrett Wilson. Still can't realize that if Garrett Wilson is being double teamed on the outside, maybe you should switch things up. Put Mike Williams on the outside with Lazard, and maybe you stick Garrett Wilson in the slot. See if you could get some openings there. Still can't realize that, right? So he's one of the worst that I've ever seen. And the offensive line, revamped as it has been this offseason, we still have one thing in common: the shitty coordinator, Keith Carter, who, when you see games like yesterday, when our line is getting trounced on, there is no adjustments absolutely whatsoever. And this is an offensive line with veterans. Mind you, Tyron Smith, veteran, all-pro, maybe a future Hall of Famer, probably one of our worst statistical linemen right now. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. Suddenly he looks old overnight. There's a reason why a lot of these teams where these guys play for and have great careers for decide at one point or another it's time to move on. Maybe they see something that we obviously didn't see before we signed this guy. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy he's here, and I'm hoping he turns things around, but he's been bad. He's been getting beat like a drum, and he's also been a penalty machine. John Simpson yesterday, again, another penalty. On the opposite end, Morgan Moses, before he got hurt, he had a few penalties. I mean, these penalties are happening with the veteran guys, which makes absolutely no sense. It's just crazy. And like I said, when you don't have an offensive lineman, when you don't have an offensive line coach that can be innovative and start changing things around scheme-wise, that's about scheme. We can't have offensive linemen on this roster that all suck. They all have talent. They're just not being coached properly as far as scheme. That's the problem. That's the problem with the offense. And now you're relying on a 40-year-old quarterback to basically mask all these deficiencies and change play calls at the line of scrimmage. And now you're asking them to scale back on cadence, which today he went back and said, well, no, we can't scale back on that. Kind of went back on what he said yesterday because he's a buffoon, doesn't think before he talks. I mean, I say all of this to say this, man. This problem is not going to be fixed. This team, as good as they are in paper, will severely underachieve with this coaching staff. And if changes aren't made immediately, this is going to be a lost season with a 40-year-old quarterback that more than likely is not going to want to play another season next year with a new head coach and a new offensive coordinating scheme. I think at this point in his career, with what he'll probably endure this year, from losing to playing with undisciplined guys to playing for a head coach that doesn't know his ass from his elbow, to probably getting beat up by the media, because you know that's coming. Once the Jets fall into this 2, 3, 4 game losing streak, which I totally can see happening, the media will just scrutinize their play even more, and it will probably piss him off to the point where next year he goes, I don't need this anymore. I could walk away into the sunset right now. In 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, I'll walk into the Hall of Fame, first ballot. Why would I need to deal with this headache? And he'd be absolutely right. The time to make a move was last year when you saw this team totally fall apart. And now your plan is to put together a win now team with a window this big, possibly a year, maybe 2-year window. With Aaron Rodgers, you should have went out there and got yourself the best possible coach and coordinator that you could possibly get to maximize that potential and just go all in. By keeping these guys after what happened last year, that doesn't tell me that you're going all in. That tells me you don't have a clue and what the hell you're doing. Woody Johnson, Joe Douglas, all these guys. And it's just frustrating, like I said. Listen, at the end of the day, we're 2-2. But the season can spiral downhill very, very quickly if we're not careful. This is a big, big week for us. The Vikings are red hot. But some will say they're due for a letdown. I don't know. I don't see it personally. If I had to pick, I keep it real here at the Hangout Spot. I'll say that the Vikings are going to trounce all over us. And the problems are going to continue to manifest themselves to the point where maybe Woody Johnson has to think about making a change. I don't think he will, but he should, because that's what should have been done before the season. We could have probably gotten Mike Vrabel in here, who would have been a major upgrade in comparison to some of the nonsense and the crap that you're seeing here. This team would have been much more disciplined at the very least. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you think about Robert Saleh. And more importantly, what do you think about Sunday? What do you think is going to happen Sunday, man? Because like I said, I don't see the Jets winning. I hope I'm wrong. But, if you think I'm crazy and you think the Jets are all of a sudden going to turn things around and be the same team that they played against the Patriots, then let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'd be real curious to hear what you have to say. But as always, to my true Jet fan buddies, and my Jet fan followers out there, I appreciate the love and support from my boxing followers. I appreciate you big time as well. This is your boy Johnny signing out from the Hangout Spot, and I'll talk to everybody soon.